And if people, and good morning, good morning, good morning again. So it's Michelle here, and it just feels weird to be back at work. I've been out sick for almost 2 weeks, so it felt strange to actually have to get up at a regular time this morning. So for this project, so here's what we're doing. It's the digital dealer. It's the dimensional bat. Thank you, Lori. It actually feels good to be back. And we're doing the jar topper. And so the things that we'll need, I have 5 spools of thread. You are also going to need some bobbin thread wound in 2 colors. So I have a light gray, which is on the machine right now. Take it off. I have a light gray, and the light gray has a partial bobbin. I have a dark gray. I have a black. I have a pink. And then I have a purple. And the purple actually also has a partial bobbin. So when you see that little icon right next to the colors, it means that you need a partial bobbin because the back of it's going to show as well. So if I turn this over on the wings, you'll see that the back stitching shows. And I'm going to give you a couple of hints. And one of my favorite tricks for when you sew something where the back of the item is going to show and you don't want that. When our embroidery machine starts, a lot of times it leaves like a little wad of thread as it ties off. But it doesn't leave that same wad of thread when it stops. It's just when it starts. So if you pull up your bobbin thread, use your needle up, needle down to pull up your bobbin thread before you press the go button to start. You won't have that happen. You'll get a really nice clean finish on the back. Oh, isn't that cute? He can actually hide his face as well. So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to be showing you. And I will give you other tips along the way. I am going to be using a combination of both tape and spray based. I use a lot of spray based because in a lot of situations, sometimes the spray based is a little bit of a better choice. So the problem is don't use too much of the spray based or then you end up with a gummy mess. So, and I do that because sometimes it's just faster to use spray based than it is to tape. Sometimes the size of the piece that I'm working with is small enough that I know if I try to tape it, I'm going to end up with tape in my stitching line. And I definitely don't want that because I hate picking out stitches from tape that I didn't quite perfectly place. So I'll be using a combination of both today. And then you'll need some scissors. So these are double curved. This is the longer ones. Normally I like the shorter ones, but I can't find them this morning. So it's going to take me a while to figure out where everything went while I was out. So I'm going to be using the longer ones, but normally for this project, I would use the shorter ones. I also have a single curve, which is more of a straight, but it still curves into the hoop. And then I have these guys. These guys I like. They aren't curved, but they're really, really sharp at the very point. So if I need to get into something small and tight, like to make a V or something like that, these are always what I reach for. And then my favorite snips are the OESD snips because it has like a little hook in here. So you can really grab that piece of thread and then lop it off. So that's what I'm working with today. And that's about it. So I'm going to begin by going over what is in your kit. So if you got your kit from us, if you didn't, that's fine too. But I'm going to tell you what's in our kit. So we're going to start with, we have 2 pieces of stabilizer. One is a mesh and one is wash away. How do you tell the difference? Well, the wash away has what looks like more like polka dots. Let me see if I can zoom in. See how the grain on that, it looks more like polka dots? That's your wash away. When you grab your mesh is your cutaway. That one doesn't. That one's more opaque. And it also has a different pattern in it. And of course, if you forget, the easiest way is to just take the corner of it, add a drop of water. If it dissolves, then guess what? It's wash away. If it doesn't, it's not. All right. So you have that. You also have a piece of topper. So anytime I use a lot of toppers, sometimes some people don't. I do. I love the way any kind of satin stitching looks with a topper over the top of it. What that does is it actually helps you to keep your satin stitching on top of any type of fabric that would be lofty. And even if it's not lofty, because we're not working with lofty, we're just working with plain old quilt cottons. But what's nice is that it keeps that stitching really crisp and on top of, it doesn't let it fall, the stitching fall into the warp or weft of the fabric. So I use this a lot. We have a piece of that. You have 2 pieces of SF101 backing fabric that are going to go on your fabric pieces. You have 2 pieces. And then you have also a piece of flexi foam or Kimberbell foam. And that's going to make our little bat face kind of cushy and 3-dimensional. You also have a series of pieces of gray. So make sure that their sizes should be pretty obvious to you when we ask for a specific size. But keep in mind, you have 4 pieces, you have 2 rectangles, you have 2 squares, and then you have a embroidery topping. So embroidery topping is a little bit different than the clear topping. Embroidery topping is usually used in the color of the embroidery thread you're going to use. In this case, the black for the eyes. And what it does is it blocks any other color from coming through. So embroidery blocking, embroidery backing, blocking, whatever they call this, topping, comes in. I may be better, I may be here, but I still don't have all my words, ladies. I have no idea where they went, but not all of them have come back yet. It comes in a lot of colors, and you know the embroidery topping I use the most is white. I use white because if you've ever tried to put like 12 layers of something on a lighter piece of fabric that you have to put as an applique or anything else over a darker piece of fabric or darker thread, you know that show through is a problem. So sometimes rather than putting a lot of backing on my fabric itself, because that kind of makes the applique a little thick when you're done, I will opt for this embroidery topping. And you can see it's really thin. If you feel it, it's really, really thin. So you'll get a chance to work with that today. And definitely the black one comes in handy too. If you've got, so with black, you know, sometimes that the bobbin tends to be a problem when you're using a white bobbin, if you're not changing the bobbin out to black when you're using a lot of black as embroidery thread on the top, especially on things that have a lot of fill stitch in them. Your embroidery topping can help you with that as well. Okay. Alrighty, so now that I've gotten all my supplies, I'm going to go ahead and move to, again, selecting the correct size. So we have a regular mouth jar, not a wide mouth jar. So we're going to be selecting, remember when you pick the file, make sure it says regular mouth. And the same thing on the 4x4. I just have a 5x7 hoop. I mean, yeah, I can grab the 4x4, I guess. But essentially, I just was going to use my 5x7 for both. So make sure you have the correct files. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've got my iron warming up over here. I'm going to back my fabric. And we're going to start by hooping the wash away stabilizer. So we're going to do our wings first. So I'm just going to get the pieces that I need and get them prepared. So I know for my wings that I am going to need an the ear placement line, which is, so I'm going to trim I need the felt for the ears. So if I look at the front chart here, the ears front is the 2x2. So this is my 2x2. I'm going to set this aside. And then let's see what else we have here. The ears and the wings back is the 3x6. So that's this. And then the upper wings are the 2x6. That's this. So these are the pieces that I'm going to be using for the wings. This one is for the face. So that I'm going to put that aside over there. And then I'm going to use the fabric for the wings, for the lower wings in the background. So I'm going to start by, let's move this out of the way so I can grab my iron. And I always start by giving everything just a little kind of a mist with best press. Not the felt. The felt's going to be fine just as it is. But where do I have my best press here? Oh, look it. I do. Yay. So right now I'm just going to start. I'm going to set these pieces over by my machine because these are the 3 that I'm going to be using. And then I'm going to go ahead and get my regular fabric here. And I'm going to give it a little squirt of best press, make it nice and wrinkle free. Plus, it just feels good when it has some best press on it, right? I think it does. And then I'm going to take my backing. This is SF 101. And place it. Oh, that one's a little bit big. About a 1/2 inch. I don't know, maybe yours didn't. My kit was probably made from the scraps, so yours might be fine. But if it isn't, you can just trim it down to fit your fabric. And then I'm going to turn it over and press from the front as well. And from the front, I'm going to give it just a little bit of steam. That's going to prevent any possible shifting of the SF-101. And then before you really handle it a lot, it's always a good idea to let it cool. While it's warm, your glue is still warm. So on the stabilizer, so it could shift a little bit. All right. I'm going to grab these, move them over to by my machine. And then I'm going to hoop my wash away stabilizer. Right. Okay, I'm going to spin around now. So I am actually going to cover the camera a little bit here so we don't need Dramamine. All right. Okay, I'm checking the chat box. I think I addressed all the chatty pieces so far. Okay, so I am on the Luminaire this morning. And right now I've got a 7511 anti-glue needle in. And I am going to change out my bobbin because it's monofilament thread. And where is I'm going to start with just my regular embroidery bobbin. But sometimes what I'll do is I will look a little bit ahead and see when I might need to change the bobbin or when it says specifically. So nothing in here looks like I'm going to be changing the bobbin within the first few steps. So I'm going to go ahead and put the white one in. And let's see what our first steps are. So if you're following along with me on the directions, we're on page 5. I've done number 1 and number 2. I'm going to go ahead and load my wings right now. So I'm number 3, and I'm going to begin by stitching the placement line for the ears. So it doesn't really give me a color to place for the placement line, but I know the ears themselves are the darker gray, I believe. Let me look. I sometimes, yeah, the darker gray is what I'm gonna do, stitch the tack down with the ears. So I'm just gonna load up dark gray now. That way I don't have to change thread. And then let me move the camera over by the hoop. All right, so I'm going to try to just keep this camera right on the hoop here while I'm doing the stitching part, and that way you can watch it stitch. So 7511 anti-glue needle, color stop number 1 is the ears, the placement line. All right, so the first step is to place the ears front felt, which is the 2x2 piece. So this is what you want. You can either tape it down, or you can hold it down, or you can spray baste it. This is such a small piece that I'm just going to make sure that I have everything covered, and I am just going to hold it into place. And I'm not going to bother with pulling my bobbin thread up for the ears, mainly because the ears tuck into the jar. So you don't see if there's any kind of not so pleasant looking stitches there. So I'm just going to kind of hold this in place till it does its tack down. All right, so I have done step 5, step 6. So step 7 is telling me to trim the felt close to the stitching line. And I can do that. There's no problem with that. But it wants me to stitch the inner ear detail next. So that is like a fill stitch. So if there's a chance at all that it's going to pull on your embroidery or pull it in, that's when it's going to happen. So I'm going to choose to trim after I sew the next step, which is the inner ear detail. If you want to trim now, go right ahead. But anytime I have the opportunity to trim after any interior stitching is done, I'm going to take that opportunity. So let me just get changed out to my pink thread. We'll get his inner ears done. And I will take the hoop off of the machine and trim out those ears. If you're new to embroidery, these are great. The Kimberbell classes are a great way to actually get used to some of the terminology in embroidery. If you've been doing it for a long time, it's still great to maybe see how someone else might do something a little different than you do. So this is going to actually sew the inner, and again, it's a fill stitch. So I'm just choosing to actually run that fill stitch before I trim. And I think you're going to see what I'm talking about when I take it off. Right now, I can see back here that my felt is kind of lifting a little bit, which means that it's getting pulled at. So it just, maybe it doesn't even matter, but I just kind of prefer to have a little bit of little extra hold there. I try not to trim until it's necessary. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take, so this is why I wait. So when we first just did the tack down, this was still flat, but as it stitched on the sides with the fill stitch, it had a tendency to pull a little bit. So if I'd have trimmed really close to my stitching line, it might have actually not been exactly how I wanted it when I was done. So I just skipped that one step, and now I'm going to go back and complete that step by trimming. And I'm going to move over to the table to do this. It's always easier to do it when your hoop is flat. So I'm going to trim close to, but not through the stitching line. And I'm just going to cut through the center first. Makes it a little bit easier to keep up with. So I know that the bottom part here, that's going to get tucked in right here. All right. Oh. I'm going to take this back over to the machine. And let's see what's upcoming next. So our next step is to stitch the lower wings placement line. And our lower wings, oh, and then place our lower wings fabric right side up. So I'm going to go ahead and not with pink. So it doesn't tell me yet what color I need for that fabric. So I'm going to kind of look over and see what's, I'm going to leave it gray. I'm going to leave it gray, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to actually do the lower, the placement line, the tack down line, the trim around line, but then I'm going to be adding the other felt, and that's going to cover the top line. And then I'm actually going to be satin stitching over the bottom. So that's going to cover the bottom line. So that way I don't have to change threads as often. So I'm going to go ahead and put my gray thread back on, dark gray, and then continue on. And again, hasn't asked me to change bobbin threads yet. There's a card for you on my phone.
You're sweet. Thank you.
Thank you for the food. It was wonderful. All right, so there's my placement line. And I'm going to go ahead and put my my lower wings fabric on. Now with this, I think I'm just going to tape it because I have plenty of room to tape. You could use spray base on this, or you can use some tape. I do try to keep the pieces small and out of the stitching line. So one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up and check and make sure that I've got my sides taken care of. I do. And I'm just going to put a little piece here. And then let me make sure that I'm this way I'm covered as well. Yep, it's good. So I'm just going to put a little tape on the corners. I really truly do try to avoid putting the tape in an area where I'm going to be stitching, because it really, this is transport tape. You can use paper tape, which is what's in your Kimberbell kit most of the time on the event kits. You can use transport. You can use masking tape. You can use washi tape. It just, whatever tapes it down works. But you know, depending on what you use, sometimes it's really hard. Like on masking tape or painter's tape, that sticky that's in there is really, really hard to get out of your stitching if you actually misjudge where the tape goes and you end up stitching over the tape. Hi, Minnie. Dana just came in, brought her dog with her. All right, so with this, I know that I'm gonna be covering it up. So I'm gonna trim now and close to the stitching line, but not through it. And I can probably do it from here without having. Do you need a chair? Oh. Are you being held? No, I'm so close. Oh, yeah. So this pattern actually came with some SVG files. So if you wanted to actually cut this on your Scan and Cut or other cutting machine, you could have.
Hey, Michelle.
Yes.
I understand that on the SVG files from Kimberbell, they're a bit small. Have you found that?
You know, I have not. because normally I just do the Kimberbell stuff for class and I just usually cut it. So what you can do, so if you, for this especially, because if the cut file is for the wings, it's kind of different if you're going to be doing a satin stitch all the way around it. But what you can do is you can increase it, the size of it on the ScanNCut itself. So you have the ability, two different ways. You can either use the size increase and just do 3 beeps. And I have no idea what that number is technically, but just 3 beeps usually takes care of it. Or if you want to see exactly, and you want to know what the technical number would be, you have a feature on there that says create offset lines, not adding the 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're not adding a seam allowance. You're creating an offset line. And so what it does is it just creates an offset line that has nothing to do based on any type of a seam allowance. You can just say you want it to do like 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters or whatever, and you can actually visually see how much it creates. So that would be how I would address that. I've not done them. So, but for me, here's what I do. And you can do this again on your ScanNCut. There's 2 wings there. If I resize or add an offset line, it's going to resize it, all of it, including the blank spaces. So what I usually try to do is cut the file in half on the ScanNCut, divide it, and then just take one wing or the other separately, and then size them that way, because I think it's a little bit more accurate.
Thank you.
All right, so it looks like, it just depends. If I have a lot of cutting to do, so like the quilt patterns that they do, and sometimes the pillow patterns, then yes, I'm not doing that without cutting everything out on my ScanNCut. But something like this, that's kind of a smaller project, I usually wouldn't have, even if I did it, I wouldn't have used it for this. It's just not enough pieces to cut, I guess. But I will tell you that if you don't have it out, you won't use it at all. So got to have it where it's handy. I have a little, it's a little, I'm not going to call it a cart because it doesn't have wheels on it, but it's a little table that's the exact size of the ScanNCut that I can move over and sit it right next to my sewing machine, so I don't have to actually get up to use it. All right, so we're going to remove the hoop from the machine, turn it over to the back. You're going to want to clean up some of these guys now, so that you don't have, none of this is going to show because we're putting a backing on it, but if it's got a really thick knot there, you might want to trim it up. And this is where I'm actually going to employ the spray base, because I just trust spray base better when I'm sticking stuff to the bottom of my hoop. All of us have had the issue where we've put tape on the bottom of our hoop only to find out that the tape really just peeled off and stuck to the bed of our machine. And whatever we taped down was not in the same place as when we actually pushed the go button. So spray based for me works better in a situation like this. So I'm not going to use a lot, just a little bit, but we're taking the ears and wing back felt. So, that's not going to be this small piece. This is the back. This is what goes here, because that's to cover everything. This is the wing front. So I'm going to take this over and give it just a little squirt, and a little squirt goes a long way with spray based. I'm just going to do like a very, very light amount. So if you can hear that, that was it. Sprayed at a distance of about 12 inches away. And then I'm just going to make sure that I place it. And then you can actually see from the front as well, if you're placed correctly. When your hoop is flat on the table like this, then you can actually even press down harder to kind of make sure that that's stuck in place. With the spray based on it, when I put this back on the machine, it's not going to move. All right. So place the ears and wings back felt, completely covering the previously stitched outlines. Tape the corners in place. Stitch the ears and the wings back tack down line. So I'm going to be switching out. Am I switching out yet? No, it just says stitch the ears and wings back tack down lines and the ear alignment marks. Okay, so I'm not, but I am sewing on the back. So I am going to show you how to pull your bobbin thread. So first of all, what you would want to do, because you don't want to pull your bobbin thread up where you're not stitching, because then if you press go and the needle moves like halfway over your hoop, it's not going to help you. So normally what I'll do is open up my stitch advance and just go one stitch, and it puts the needle in the place where you're going to pull it up. So I just grab that top thread, press my needle down, needle up button, and then, you know, pull slowly, and you should be able to pull the top thread to the bottom and pull up the bobbin thread at the same time, and then just stitch. So I'll show you when I get done with this, the difference that it makes. I'm just holding on to it, not pulling and not, you know, just not allowing the machine to pull the thread away from me. And then it's going to stop here. So I'm going to touch my start stop button so that it stops again before it gets to the next side. I'll lift my presser foot, grab my thread, needle down, needle up, give it a pull. All right, so let me show you what it looks like now on the back. Can you see how I have no knots there? I only have the tie off. I have no knots that begin where the stitching begins. And then, so when I go to clip, and you're going to see the back of this, I'm not going to have anything really to clean up. So that's the difference of actually taking the time to pull the bobbin thread up. If it's going to show, I pull bobbin thread. So the ears, not so much, but the wings, definitely. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this, and it looks like I'm in the center here. So let's see, where am I going? Nope, it's the right place, I guess. I almost feel like I could have probably have used a dark gray bobbin thread as well, but I think the idea is that stuff's going to sew over it so it won't show. All right. So my next step is step 15, and that's to trim the felt from the back. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. See, look at how nicely that finishes. You have no marks where it's just the way it's when it starts that you have a possibility of having that happen. So that just makes cleanup on something that you're going to see that much easier. All right, so I'm just going to do the trim here. All right. Got a little bit of fuzz there. So that's what I'm going to use my tape for. We'll pick up some of that excess fuzz from the felt. Give it kind of a clean finish. I don't want to catch that in the next step. So before I put this back on, now that I've got this all trimmed, I don't have one on me, but if
I told them who you are in the call. It's about the scanning.
oh, okay.
I did the best I could, but I.
You know, it's the class is not under me, it's just under the store. Okay, so sorry about that, ladies. So I've done that. I've trimmed. I'm going to change my bobbin thread to match my top thread, and our next stitch is going to be done with the purple. So I'm going to grab my purple thread and I'm going to grab my purple bobbin. I only wound about a half. All right, so this is definitely going to show on the back. So I'm definitely going to be pulling up my bobbin thread with this because I don't want anything. I want a clean finish back there because you're going to be able to see the back of the bat wings. Not that you're going to be turning the jar over a lot and looking at the back of them, but the next thing that's going to do is this is the satin stitch on the bottom, and then we're going to be changing to the light gray for the wing detail. So now remember, every time my machine stops, because it's going to do this on both sides, I have to press the go button, the green button, to make it stop so that I can actually pull my bobbin thread up. And again, I'm going to advance one stitch just to make sure I'm starting in the correct place. I'm going to do needle down, needle up. And I'm going to slowly give it a pull so that I can pull bobbin thread up and then also have top thread. So I have both of them. I'm just holding on to them. I'm not doing anything else. And then I'm just going to start the zigzag, the satin stitch. That one's not going to get in the way of anything. I can wait till the end to trim the ends. soon as I hear the cutter, I just push the go button. And I wait to hear the cutter because that means that it's going to move into the next position. And since I know that's where it's at, now I don't have to advance. Needle down, needle up. That one, I didn't grab the top thread fast enough. All right. So I have to change my bobbin thread now. So we are on step number 17, color stop number 8. So we're changing the bobbin thread to match our wing detail here again, because we're going to see it on the other side. But since I have to take that off, look at how clean that finish is. So it takes a little extra time, you know, to pull your bobbin thread. You kind of have to be paying attention so that you can stop the machine in this case. But I think it's well worth it because the finish that you get on the back is just beautiful. All right, let me get my silver or light gray bobbin thread, put that on. And we're going to be doing the wing detail. So it's time to change to the light gray thread. All right. Again, it's going to show. So needle down, needle up. So if I'm not talking about this, I can usually do it pretty doggone fast. All right. I can change back to my white bobbin now, I think. Turn this. All right, let's see what it looks like on the back. Because, you know, this would really be a situation here, especially with this satin stitch, how heavy it is, and then having a bean stitch go over the top of it would really be a place where it might be able to, it might have an issue. And nothing, just the little threads to cut off from where it tied off. All right, let's see what's next. So I am on, let's see, I've done the wing detail. I can, it's not asking me to switch the bobbin back. So I assume it's going to want me to use the lighter gray for the upper wing detail. Let's see. But it's going to get stitched out with the dark gray. Okay, I'm going to leave my gray in there for now. And let's see what we're doing. All right, so our next one is step number, stitch the upper wings placement line. Step number 18, color stop number 9. So again, this is a placement line, so it's going to get covered. I don't think I need to, oh, I probably should have. I forgot. But that'll be a good comparison. All right, let's see what the back looks like. And then I'm going to place my upper wing felt. Not too bad. A little bit of fluff, not too bad. All right. So now I'm going to place my top felt. And I think I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of tape for this, just on the edges like I did before. Definitely on felt, you want to keep the tape out of the stitching line. So I'm on step 19. Place the upper wings felt, which is the smaller one. So we want to make sure that we have coverage at the top and at the sides. And then and I'm also going to change to the darker gray. Hey, Danny. All right, so we're gonna take this off and trim the felt close to the stitching line and remove the project from the hoop because you are ready to actually trim out your ears, your bat ears and your bat wings. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this over to the table to trim. And also set up for our next one. All right. So now we're going to take it out of the hoop and trim. It says to trim it about a 1/8 of an inch away. And that's, like you're gonna, and then you can either melt away your excess stabilizer, or there's a couple of ways. If you have some nice sharp scissors and you go slow enough, you can probably trim all the way up to the line itself. But one of the things I do like to do first off is just get rid of all of the excess so that you're not dragging it around with you trying to trim, because it's a lot of stabilizer for a really little tiny piece here. So let's get rid of it. All right. I tend to go slowly and go as close as I can. You can use a Q-tip around the edges, a wet Q-tip, to dissolve any leftover wash away. I also buy the foam makeup sponges in bags of 100. And that's what I use when I'm doing a project that requires me to take water to dissolve around the edges. Q-tip only holds a little bit of water, but those makeup sponges, when they're wet, you can actually do the whole thing with like one makeup sponge. I don't rewash them and use them, so I just toss them, but they're pretty inexpensive. But you could, if the project wasn't big, you could, reuse them. All right. Make sure that you don't cut the tab off because, it's on the other side. It's going to help stick it to the jar. So let's see what I got here. I'll use these. I'm really missing my little double curves this morning, the short ones. I'll have to go on the scavenger hunt to find them when we get done. So you can get pretty doggone close. So you may or may not have to use a Q-tip at all.
Let's find out. Oh, no, it's okay.
There we go.
I found all of this and this. Here is.
All right.
And so it is backing. I didn't see it in here. It doesn't say, is that backing? Pillow, flange, and back, cheaper for the yard. That color. That, where's the air? It wasn't in here. That's not it? Okay. Cheaper for the yard. That's it.
Hmm.
Okay, so dog, dog.
All right, so those are trimmed out. And we are through half of it. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my directions because I'm pretty sure that I'm going to hoop my stabilizer because I can't go anywhere else, I guess, huh? So I'm going to flip over to page 7. And yes, I'm going to load my stabilizer, which is in this case, the cutaway stabilizer. All right, so hoop the lightweight mesh, load the embroidery file. Make sure you get the right one. It's the one that I'm using the 5x7 hoop because that's what I have. My stabilizer has been cut for, but you can fit the face into 4x4 hoop. So we're going to change the bobbin thread to a neutral color. So now it's having us change the bobbin thread. So go ahead and put your white back in. So for the back of this one is going to go right over the jar. So let me show you the cat. So I didn't trim, I didn't pull bobbin thread, I didn't do anything because this is going to actually fit over the lid of the jar. So I didn't worry about it on this because nothing's going to be exposed. I only worried about it when it made a difference. So you can be done with that step if you'd like. All right, let me get over here. So I'm going to need my last couple pieces here, which are the larger square of the gray, the purple, which is going to be our base. We're going to need our embroidery topping. We're going to need our topper, and we're going to need our foam. So all of those pieces you can pile in front of your machine now, and let's move over there. All right. So I'm going to get rid of the design that I have on here right now. And I'm going to go retrieve. It should say 4x4 regular mouth is what it should say. Retrieve that one. And then go ahead and set and embroider. All right, so this has a very unique, I wouldn't call it a satin stitch. It's kind of a unique, all the jar toppers are the same. I just happen to have the cat face right now. So if you haven't done one of these, it has like a little, it's not really a zigzag. It's just a little bit of a more than just a straight stitch. And that's going to be along your cutting line. So that's also the size when you're done. So be aware that it's not really a satin stitch, so it's correct. It just looks a little bit different than maybe you might be used to. All right, so I've got the white bobbin thread back in. It says I am on step 3, or yes, step 3. Step 4 or step 3 is stitch the background placement line. So let's see where I'm going first. So I'm gonna tack down. I'm going to be tacking down my purple and stuff. So for right now, for the purple, I think I'm just going to put the purple thread on. I know I'm going to have to go back to the dark gray later, but I'll just use the purple right now because it kind of matches the background. And then step 4 is to place the background fabric right side up. That's the purple stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put some spray base on this one. And I'm going to take my hoop off for a minute because I want to see from the backside that I've at least got some halfway decent, not a skinny line on one side. So even though it's not perfect, I've got plenty out here on this outside edge. I can move it up a little bit. There. So it's pretty much even. I'm going to be trimming, but I want to make sure that, you know, I don't have like an edge that's not covered. All right. So we are on page 7, step 5, stitch number 2, which is to stitch the background tack down line. And it's showing it in gray. I'm going to go ahead and leave purple because I know that that one's not going to be seen. It's going to be on the inside of the jar lid. The next one I will change out to the gray. All right, so I'm going to take my purple off. I'm going to change it out to my darker gray. Again, this is just a placement line. It's where the jar lid's going to go. And using a darker color allows you to see those stitches from the back, which is nice. The next thing you're going to do is step number 7. So color stop number 4 is stitch the placement line for your foam. And again, I'm going to go ahead and just leave the gray on. You won't see this when it's done, obviously, but and then we're going to actually stitch the tack down for the foam. So again, I'm going to leave the gray on. And up to you. You can either tape it, hold it in place, or spray baste it. not that big. I'm gonna just hold it down. And then you're gonna trim. So when you trim this, you want to get as close as you can to, but not through those stitching lines. And what to be aware of here is it's actually giving you some recessed areas to place the ends of your wings and the ends of the ears. So try and take your time and be precise. You'll thank me for that later when you have to put those pieces in.
Okay, and can you give me your name and your telephone number, please? Oh, Francisco, and then what's his last name again? Huh? Okay, and what is your number, please? Yes. 832 830. Thank you. 2384. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that he got it, number one. And very good. Bye-bye.
All righty. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna put that back on. And let's see what's coming up next. It is gonna stitch the ear placement lines for me. So here we go. All right, so now comes the time that we're going to place our ears on. So you have two different lines of stitching at the bottom of the ear. So I'm going to take this over the table so we can kind of see it a little bit closer. All right, so you have a placement line here that you just stitched. When you grab the ears, make sure you got them in the same direction. They go like this. They don't go like this because that doesn't look like a bat when he's done. So we want to align this line of stitching right here aligns with the placement line you just stitched. So it's going to fit inside that recession and you're going to align those lines. And for this, I am definitely going to be using some tape. All right, so I'm going to make sure I have this part, this line here, aligned with this here. So there it is there. There it is on the other side. And then I'm going to tape across the top of the ear. Because I know there's no stitching going to go there. And then the same over here. I'm going to line up. There's that placement line we just stitched. It aligns with that placement line there. And tape it down. So that's what we should be looking like. And I'm going to take this back to the machine. I think so. I don't know. Maybe I'm to turn the page. Yes, I'm going to stitch. So it's going to do the tack down stitch to for the ears, and then I'm going to be doing the wings. So as long as I'm over here at the table, I'm going to go ahead and show you how I'm going to place my wings. So the wings, actually, you have part of your wing here. You have part of your wing here where if you look at it from the front, you see the stabilizer because your wing just kind of finishes there. That part fits right in there. It fits right in the hole. And then it's not, it stitches around when it stitches the face on. So that one's not quite as the ear, you actually have to line up the placement line underneath. This one just fits in the hole. So, and then you'll see that you have part of this that doesn't have felt or fabric on the front, and that fits into that hole. Okay, so I'm going to just bring these over here with me, and I'm going to go ahead and go back to the machine. All right, so the next thing to sew, I've got all my pieces here. I'm going to set these down on the bottom. I've got my ears tacked down. And I always find that in pieces like this, where you're sewing over layers, that sometimes a stiletto or another type of pointy object, a chopstick or a skewer, to kind of hold it down when it sews, prevents it from when it stitches, it just like wants to bring the whole piece up with it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to put my foot down and I'm going to push go with my stiletto, just kind of holding that in place when it starts. Once it starts, I'll let go. All right. You can take the tape off if you like. Flip to page 8. And it also has a placement line that's going to stitch for the wings. All right. So you'll notice that your directions say overlap this placement line by about 1/4 inch, which is about what your excess is here. And I think I'm just going to take the tape off the ears and use it on the wings. Looks like it's going to do this side first. Definitely keeping the point of the stiletto out of the way, but just holding on to the tip of the wing. All right, let's get the tape out of there, and you're gonna need your wash away topping. So you want to cover completely the bottom of the ears and the wings. So when you get that on, make sure it covers the bottom of the ears and the wings. This is going to actually help hold everything down and in place when you actually sew the next piece on, which is going to be the gray felt. So I'm just going to get that, and I'm going to get a fresh piece of tape for that. I try to reuse the tape, but every once in a while, especially with felt, it gets really furry. All right, there we go. And this is the placement line for the face. And then we're going to place that last piece of felt over the top. I'm just going to hold it in place. I can see where it just stitched. I'm just going to hold this in place. You can spray baste, you can tape. All right, this is going to have a decorative stitching that goes around it. So we do have to trim it. But when you trim, be careful that you don't trim your wash away stabilizer. So that, because we want to have that to actually do the decorative trim. Don't cut your ears off either. You have to kind of go slow so that you don't just go whack in there and then cut your ears off. Because that would be sad. All right. Let's see what's next. He's cute. He's got that little 3D going on. So we got the gray still in there. We're doing a decorative stitch. We're almost done. All right, we have three more color changes and we're done. So let's see what's up next. I think it's his nose. What do you think? Yep, nose fill. So pink is up. All right, so the next thing that's up here is it says to stitch the nose detail and the fangs fill. And I did the nose detail and the fangs fill with the lighter gray as suggested. Unfortunately, I can't see my little fangs at all. So I'm gonna go ahead and use a white thread here so I can see my fangs and see the little nose detail. Uh, because the light gray just, I mean, even with the light, you can just barely see the stitching there. So I'm gonna use a lighter color this time. I mean, if you're going to be a bat with fangs, you should be able to be proud of those fangs, right? You got to see them. Okay, so for the last step, we need to have our embroidery topping. What do you think? See, look at, I can see his fangs now. Isn't that better? I can see them. All right, so our last step is going to include putting this over the top, and it's going to be for his eyes and his mouth. So you want to be able to cover the entire area, his entire face. So I mean, look at, his eyes are gonna be up here and his mouth is gonna be down here. So you want to make sure you cover the whole face. And then go ahead and change it out to your black thread. And I am definitely gonna tape that down. Little pieces, but I am definitely gonna tape it down. All right, we're done. We got to get this on our little jar here so it's cute. Moving over to the table. All right, so I'm going to get the black off here. Now you only have a row of stitching here, so I'm going to start by tearing it away from the eyes. And see, it just tears away. But remember, you want to kind of go slowly because this is just a row of straight stitching. So I'm going to start and tear in the direction of the straight stitching.
Yes. Yep.
And then just kind of work it out. Great. All out now. Let's get the tape off. And I'm also going to tear away my excess of the topper here. All right. I am going to fold these guys in and tape them down because I know I'm likely going to cut them off if I try to trim from the back, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to kind of tape them out of the way. And then I'm going to trim about 1/8 of an inch away from the outside. And the reason I tape these down is because I'm going to actually trim from the back where I can actually see. About 1/8 of an inch away from that final stitching. Make sure you check periodically if you feel like there's something that you're going to cut off. We don't want to cut his wings or his ears off. Usually just the wings get in the way. All right. So you're just about done here. And we're just going to put the lid on. So it gives us a placement line here for where that lid's going to fit. Just like that. All right. If you wanted to make this permanent, in other words, you're going to give the jars a gift, you don't expect that they're ever going to take the topper off of it, then you could easily use glue and then just make it permanent. If it's your jar and you're going to make seasonal jar toppers for seasonal candy or whatever you want to put in there, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually spray the top of the lid here with the spray adhesive. That I am going to give a pretty good dose to. And if you don't want to get it on your fingers, you should pick the jar lid up with tweezers. But then I can position the jar lid and it's going to stay in position because it's got the glue, it's the spray fix on top of it. Spray fix isn't permanent. And then let's fold these guys back again and let's get the jar ring. Fold everything forward. And then just slip the ring over the top. And push from the back. Get out of there, you little ear. And there you have it. Isn't that cute? So it's all stuck in the back there. And mine would be removable. So next time there's a jar topper, I'll probably just pull the bat off and just reuse the jar and then just screw it onto the jar. How cute is that? I like that he has that his fangs are white because I can see his fangs on this one. So, all right, ladies, thanks so much for stitching with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to unmask here so I can wave goodbye. Have a good day.
Thanks, Michelle. Loved it.
You're welcome. Yeah, I do too. I like the chart toppers. They're a lot of fun.